We have got beautiful seafood chowder, simple handmade pasta with a delicious zesty sauce, and gorgeous French toast muffins with berries and white chocolate.
In our kitchen, we'll be finishing the show with my favourite use of a berry, a strawberry daiquiri. Hurrah! But before the drinks, we better get cooking. A chowder might normally be thought of as a bit of a wintry dish, but I think it works all year round. And when you use frozen fish, you can forget about the season anyway. It doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah.
And stuff from the freezer. That's the whole idea of this show, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
about stuff from the freezer and stuff from your store cupboard. And so you start off absolutely at the beginning with onions and bacon, and they fry and they go soft. And then we're going to add to that some pepper and a bit of salt. The thing about this is it needs to be quite rich, and there's this debate, isn't there, about what's the perfect chowder? Does it have tomato in it? Does it have cream in it?
So I wouldn't have tomato in a chowder, but I'm not really, you know, I know that lots of people get on at us about things that aren't exactly perfect. But I think that's what's lovely about recipes is, and especially at home, is that you can make it your own. I think that's really important. So I don't think a chowder has to have certain things in it, apart from fish.
Yes.
And I would have sweet
And?
wine.
Potatoes.
Oh, potatoes, of course.
Got to have potatoes to thicken
Potatoes,
it.
yeah.
So we start off our base, bacon and onions. We love that smell.
Yeah.
To that, we're going to add a little bit of fresh thyme and then a couple of bay leaves as well.
Right.
So we've got a leek,
Yeah.
some potatoes, a bit of stock, and then just going to chop those leeks up.
So do you want me to chop that?
Yes, please. And do make sure you get the grit out of it. So that's
I thought
done.
you just said that it was
Yes,
washed.
it is washed.
Oh, you weren't talking to me.
No,
I
no,
thought
it's
you were
a-
going,
no.
and do make sure you get the grit out of it. It's like,
Then you add potatoes. Potatoes go in and you fry the potatoes. These have been just partially cooked. Fry the potatoes, and the potatoes take up the flavour of the onion and the bacon. And they also act as the thickening agent for the soup. Can you chuck those in for me?
yeah, I can.
Fab. Good.
And we've got this little cob loaf, and it's just a really nice way to serve it. If you had little crusty rolls, you could do individual ones, which I really like as well. But you just have to cut the top off it.
While you cut the top off, I'm going to now add my stock to this. I'm going to add a good litre of stock, some fish stock, and then I'm going to go to the larder and get myself a jar of clams, because I haven't got fresh clams, and use the juice of the clams as well.
So yeah, you can use fresh clams, frozen clams, or as you've got in a jar. And the same with the leeks. A really good thing to do is if your leeks, you know, if you have too many, don't throw them away, just slice them and put them in the freezer, and then you can use them as well. So it's just a good way of using up vegetables. I'm going to take most of the bread out of this, and then we're going to use the bread to make croutons.
So here's the story about the biscuits.
He's been waiting. I can't tell you how long he's been waiting. He's like this, a coiled spring to tell me about the croutons. Go.
So originally, chowder wasn't made in America. Apparently it was done between Brittany and Cornwall. And it was the fishermen that would cross over. But what they put in it was ship's biscuits. So the ship's biscuit...
Ship's biscuit.
A ship's biscuit,
Right.
which was a hard biscuit. And that was what's always crumbled across the top of a chowder. And that's why you have
which
croutons.
is why we have the croutons or the crackers.
Yeah, there we are.
Do you know that my dad said in his wedding speech that John would be his phone a friend?
Isn't that nice? So we've got our stock here. That's going to come to the boil. It won't take very long, about sort of 4 or 5 minutes. And once that starts to boil, the potatoes start to thicken up the soup, because those potatoes have been par-cooked. You still raw, just need to cook it for about 20 minutes.
Have you got a tray there, my love?
Yes, of course.
For these little
There's
croutons.
a tray for your crouton, for your ship's biscuits.
From a ship's biscuit.
Slug
Bit
of wine. Got to have a slug of wine. And then our frozen seafood, which we've defrosted. What are they doing there?
So I know that we've got some cod, but in the chowder that I love, it had some prawns. And frozen prawns, easy. Keep them in your freezer and then you can use them
Prawns in
whenever.
chowder?
They're lovely. They add a little bit of colour, a little bit of pink. It's very nice.
You want me to cut them, or what do you want me to do?
No, I'd like...
Leave them as they are?
Yeah. So I've got some oil here that I'm just going to put on my croutons. And they can either be cooked in the oven, or they can be fried, whatever you wanted to do with them. These need to go into the oven at about 180, 200 for about 15 to 20 minutes.
So now our seafood.
Yeah.
So prawns, frozen prawns, which we've defrosted, frozen cod, which we've defrosted, a nice big pieces of cod, your prawns, because you want to put them in there.
I do.
Okay, and what you do now is just make sure your potatoes are starting nice and soft and it's starting to thicken up a little bit. And you lay your fish into the actual pan. Drop it on top.
Yeah.
And just let it sit. And what does it do, Lisa?
It falls as it should.
Falls.
And then it will break apart when it wants to.
That's it. Let it cook nicely. Put your prawns around the outside. I think that's already looking great. And they are raw prawns because when you cook a prawn, it turns to orange.
Well, or I call it pink.
Do you?
It's really weird that you say orange.
I think it is. I think it's orange because apparently it's carotene.
Well, it's sort of coral, isn't it?
Coral, there you go, like your jumper. Right, I'm going to wash my hands. So I've had my seafood.
Okay. What I'd like to put in this, and I think it needs, is maybe a little bit of sweet corn and maybe some peas.
Right, from the freezer.
From the freezer, my love.
Fancy. Frozen sweet corn and frozen peas. Sweet corn.
Thank you.
Peas.
And I think just a little smattering of both.
The thing is, that's going to drop the temperature, so we're going to make sure that goes right back up again. And a sprinkling of peas.
Sprinkling of sweet corn and a sprinkling of peas.
And I think this is what a lot of people forget about the freezer, is there are lots of things in there that we can use and just make things a bit more zhuzhy.
Well, I also think that this then becomes like a family meal. You know, you've got a bit of vegetables in there, and as a mum, you're going, OK, well, it's got some peas and sweet corn in, so we've all had a bit of a vegetable as well. I think it's nice. It bulks it out a bit.
It does. The other thing to remember, I think, is when you cook fish, it doesn't need to cook for a huge amount of time.
No.
It cooks very quickly. The prawns are great as an indicator of when they're cooked because they go in there translucent, and as we know, they change colour.
But also, the thing is if you try and keep them the same size, because the trouble is once those prawns go really small, it means that they're properly overcooked. Sometimes they're a bit hard. So if you can keep them the same size, then you know once they've turned pink, they're done.
And what you're saying is if they start to shrink, then
get them off the heat.
Get them off the heat. Some clams. So now what we've done, so we started with bacon and onions. We cooked those down with some potatoes and some leeks. We've got a whole loaf of bread. We put in some stock and then our fish, some herbs, bay leaves and thyme, salt and pepper, sweet corn, peas, prawns, cod, some more clams, and last a little bit of white wine. And now to finish off, a little bit of cream. Okay, I think it just looks great.
It's good food for when you're feeling a bit run down. It feels like it's, brain food and build you up food.
Our chowder is ready to eat. There we are. Perfect. And the thing is with this lovely loaf of bread is the soup itself will soak into the crust and you'll get that authenticity of a ship's biscuit. Not that you really want a ship's biscuit, but what you do want is a pile of seafood sitting across the top. I haven't put any parsley in. You can put parsley across the top if you want to.
Yeah, well, we need to put a little bit of parsley on the top, I think.
Okay, so it's a chowder is sort of as much a sort of meal really. It's a meal rather than just being a soup. Parsley across the top, some croutons.
Our ones are still cooking, but these we did earlier.
Some croutons on the side.
And there's your little
loaf of bread. Maybe a little lemon across there as well if we want a lemon.
I'm clearing up the peas.
They're the escapees. Escape. Sorry. There you go. Seafood chowder. Pasta is a store cupboard staple, but if you can't get hold of it in the shops, there's no need to panic. We're going to show you how easy it is to make yourself without an egg.
Yeah, that's right. You don't need any fancy equipment or anything like that, just your hands, flour, salt and water.
So you get some flour larder, and if you can't get 00 flour like we've got, use strong bread flour.
Yeah, it works just as well.
And then you just add a little bit more water. But it's about 180 mils of water to 400 grams of flour. And what you do is take your flour, drop it on a bench.
Yep. And a pinch of salt.
Good pinch of salt. And then you put a well in the middle. And that's 400 mils of there. Put a well in the middle of here like this. And you pour the water Can you pour that water into the middle for me? Pour all that water in, and you start to just move it in. That's plenty, thank you very much. Then, but please make sure that your bench is clean. And then you just start to, starts to roll. Quick. That's all right, that's fine.
This is definitely one to do with the kids, isn't it?
Absolutely. But the thing is now is just to bring this pasta dough together, and if you can just pass me this little silver bread slidey thing.
Yeah, our bread slider thing.
Yeah, there.
I think it's quite amazing because, you know, especially on TV shows when you see people making pasta, there's the egg and there's the pasta machine and there's people holding it and it's sort of this terrifying thing. This is so super easy, isn't it?
So easy, so fast, and the fact that it's actually just water and flour. I mean, they are store-covered staples. And I suppose we can all buy pasta. We can buy pasta. There's no two ways about that. I get that we can buy pasta.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you've got the little ones around and you just want to do something a little bit more, this just, I don't know, there's something quite nice about it. You just bring the dough together and you just keep on going and going. You can actually do this in a food processor if you want to.
Right.
Which makes it a bit easier. So now just put a little bit more water in there for me.
I think
Just a little bit more.
A little bit more.
That's it. And maybe the rest of that water. There we go. So it is a matter of just playing around a bit. And then we got our dough really starts to come together. So that just mold and push that together. And it gets wrapped up in a piece of paper or something similar because it does need to rest.
Yeah. Now, how long would you rest it for? And do you rest it in the fridge or do you rest it on the side?
I don't rest it in the fridge. I don't think you need to because it's just flour and water. There's no eggs in it. And the other thing I think you need to do with it is just to let it rest for at least half an hour. Some people say 10 minutes, but I think a little bit longer than that. And there we have our ball of dough.
Lovely.
Fine. And that rests. So that one's going to rest over there.
Yep.
We've got one which is already rested. So it's a decent dough. And this is where the fun bit comes. This is where the kids can get really stuck in. So we're going to do 3 different shapes. We're going to do orecchiette, which means little ears.
Yep.
We're going to do cavatelli, which is like a little grooved pasta, which looks like a gnocchi.
Yep.
And then we're going to do something which is called truffi, which is a long strand, which you then put a knife across and it goes into a twist.
I know, I watched you do that the other day with your little knife.
So the first part of all of them is just take a small piece of your dough, a little sort of end of your dough.
Yep.
You don't have to have you can use a knife, it's fine.
It's fine. We've just got some special cutter thing.
Yeah, we just use a knife. And then roll it out as you would do when you were a kid and you used to make those.
Plasticine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't put any more flour on the bench. It really needs to be quite a dry bench with nothing else on it because otherwise it gets too floury and you can't roll it out. So keep it really flourless. Once we've done that, then it's made, and it's, you see how tiny it is, it's like a sort of little snake. And then you take it into little pieces. So orecchiette a little bit larger, so I'm going to give that one to you. So I'm going to give you about some large ones, and we're going to try and do different ways of doing it.
To make the orecchiette, I've always just used my thumb, and you just want to make sure that you get, so what you have is a little see-through almost indentation, because what it needs to be is thin there, otherwise it'll be too thick.
Yeah.
But it is really, it's one of the most easy little pastas to make.
That's the easy, well, you're going to keep on making those with those.
But you can't make these.
I can't make them,
Because
no.
you've got big thumbs.
I've got sausage fingers. Right, so then the next one, which I really, really like, is the cavatelli. Now, cavatelli, some people say it's troublesome because it's supposed to have grooves in it. And you can buy these grooving boards on the web. However, I've discovered something else which works even better, and that is a sushi mat.
I love when you found this.
So you roll out again into your snake and then make them into small pieces, into quite small pieces. But there's a way of putting them onto the mat so it does work. So we take the pasta dough and you take your mat and you put it so where the cut edge is up or down onto the mat. You take your thumb, I'm going to put a couple on here so you can see them. So you can see you go across like this and you put them on your mat. And then you push down with your thumb and roll it, and it becomes this wonderful little grooved pasta with
So cool.
with a hole in the back of it. And the reason it has to be grooved and the reason it's open at the back is so it takes up the sauce.
Exactly, and it's exactly the same as this. You want to be able to have a little bit that you can have a slurp of nice sauce in it.
And once you've done these, if you're not going to cook it all, you can either dry it or you can freeze it. As long as you freeze it from fresh and you cook them from frozen, because if you defrost them, they will stick back together again. So there's our orecchiette, there's our cavatelli, and they go onto our little tray here. I'm going to put those there. But the thing about the freezer is we always think about the freezer as just being a place where we put a bit of bolognese in a plastic bag. But, you know, things like chopped up vegetables, your leeks, for instance, if you've got them in the fridge, don't throw them away.
No, absolutely not. I think that people don't realise how much you can freeze. So which ones, what shapes are we going for next? Are we going to go for those special little curlers?
The true feet. So these have become my favourite. So what you do is you now cut our little sausage again.
Yep.
What we do is we take it and we cut it on an angle. So they're quite long and very, very thin. I would like you to roll those out so they become like a...
Yes, like a little long...
long pasta shape. Okay. So that's the first bit. So this is the way I love doing this one. I know it's really weird, but I do absolutely love it. The good thing is that with making your own pasta as well, is there's no egg.
No.
Which means that you are...
vegan.
Absolutely vegan. So once you've got this little thin, these little lovely strips, because this is the fun bit, you roll your knife along the actual pasta and it turns it into a twiddle.
So we're always looking at different ways to just come up with a very simple sauce, aren't we? And at the moment, what we want to do is use stuff in our cupboards and not waste anything. And what we're going to do is use preserved lemons in this sauce because they're really easy to make. You can keep them in the cupboard and they last for years.
But you can also buy them.
You can buy them.
Yeah.
But they are lovely to make, and they're one of those things that if you've got lots of time on your hands, then it's a really lovely thing to do. So the thing about preserved lemons is that they've got an almost, and it sounds funny saying it.
Sherbety, how's that?
Sherbety, yes. But it's like you can tell it's been preserved, you can tell it's had a bit of time to sort of sink into that jar. Do you know what I'm saying? So what you're going to do is cut your lemons. You're going to use 8 lemons. 4 are going to go into the jar and 4 you're just going to juice. So I've got the juice of 4 lemons in there. So cut your lemons into quarters, but keep them to the root. So I'll just do that one again. So you're just going to cut them across.
So it's sort of like a flower, isn't it? You want to open it right up like a flower.
Yeah.
And that's the start of your lemons. So you keep the rind on, but just with everybody, if you wash your lemons with warm water, hot water first, because some of them have wax on them.
Yes, so make sure that they are nice and clean.
Don't want to have waxy preserved lemons.
Nothing worse.
Nothing worse. In this pan, I've got some frozen peas, a couple of handfuls of frozen peas, a bit of olive oil, a bit of butter, salt and pepper. That's going to be the base of the sauce. I'm going to mash half it up and then keep some of the peas whole.
Yeah. So my jar, you can sterilise a jar very, very easily. We save all our jars, don't we? And put them through the dishwasher or just wash them with soapy water. And then, once they're nice and clean, if you've got one of these, take the rubber seal off and put them into an oven, probably a low oven, about 140 to 160, for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and it just will sterilise them. So I've got salt here, about 70 grams of salt. So I'm going to put a little bit into the bottom.
Which is one of those very interesting things I don't understand about when you preserve lemons, because if you consider a lemon, which is just acid, and preserving is just salt, what could actually be in that jar that could actually make the whole thing? But it's safety, isn't it? Really important to preserve your jars, regardless of what you're going to do.
I totally agree, but it's also, the fact is as well, is that it gives it such an amazing flavour. That salty lemon rind is something that I absolutely love. And so then what I'm going to do is open my lemon up and just sort of fill them with salt so that it goes into the actual...
Not a job to do when you've got a cut in your hands.
No, definitely not. And I'm going to squinch them all into this jar. Just put him in there. Little bay leaf to make it look pretty. And then I'm going to fill up with my juice and then just put the lid on. Give it a good shake. And that needs to be sitting in your cupboard for at least a month before you use it. What I love to use preserved lemons for, and it, you know, we're using it for a pasta sauce here, but one thing that it's really goes well with is in mashed potato, because what you're going to do, and we'll show you with these lemons, is that you don't use the actual, what you're just going to use is the skin, so none of the flesh, and you cut that skin really finely and put it through like either potato salad or mashed potatoes, and it's absolutely delicious with fish. Lovely through rice as well, so through a paella or through a risotto. I just think they're really lovely things, and as you can see that John's cutting them, so what you're using is just the little fine bits of skin.
Preserved lemons will add a real sort of zestiness and summeriness to your pasta, but what we've got here are our little bits of orecchiette which we made, and boiling hot water. No need to put any salt or olive oil or anything in it, it's fine because your pasta's there. These were just dried out a little bit, made these before, and then they can go straight into our boiling water. So that goes into there.
Do you know what it reminds me of? You know what they smell like, what they taste and smell like is bitter lemon. Do you remember you used to get those little bottles of bitter lemon?
Even if you're going to make your own lemons,
Yep.
they're going to take a while to be preserved.
Yeah, a month.
So you use shop-bought ones.
Yeah.
And these are shop-bought ones, they're a bit smaller. That's all right.
Not as pretty as mine.
Could you do me a favour, my lovely?
Yeah.
Could you please mash up half those
Yeah, I will.
those peas in there while I just cut these up?
I think that there's nothing nicer, I know your daughter would not agree, than a pea. It's my favourite vegetable.
You mean a frozen pea?
A frozen pea.
And I have to say to you, after years and many times of buying peas fresh, which I love, and you'd sit there and, you know, I remember as a kid always eating more of them than ever got to the pot. But frozen peas are really brilliant.
They really are.
They are one of the essential things in your cupboard or freezer.
Anyway.
So peas, then quite a lot of lemon, because it can be really summery and zesty.
Yep.
In there. A little bit more olive oil. And then we're going to grab out, that goes back on the heat. Make sure that's nice and hot.
And you want quite a lot of olive oil, more than you would think, don't you?
Absolutely. And then we've got two different cheeses here. We've got ricotta and we've also got pecorino. Pecorino is lovely hard cheese for grating across the top, and the ricotta just to put through it. But I love ricotta. It's so creamy and sweet and delicious. Now, what will happen is our pasta, when it's ready, it will float to the top. So it's going to take another minute or so. But the great thing about cooking pasta when you made it at home yourself is it tells you when it's ready, which might sound a bit odd, but it does. It actually is. It just comes to the top and then it's ready to go. So we mashed the peas, half the peas, so you got more of a sauce.
Yeah.
And the peas actually thicken with the pasta water. And this is really interesting, I think, that people don't realise. A lot of people drain their pasta off. And in my world, it doesn't work. What you've got to do, you see they've just come to the top. What you've got to do is you've got to use the water and the pasta. You hear it sizzling.
Yeah. And even if you're making quite a lot of this, you know, for a big family, then you could start off by doing this and then drain the rest of it. So I think what you've got to, you know, or I just drain it over a bowl, and then I can put as much pasta water into a bowl, into the sauce as possible.
Because the pasta has got starch in it, so that water has now got starch in it, and it's the thickening agent. But the other thing it does, it makes the sauce with the olive oil. Just there, a little tiny dash. In we go. That all comes up, and really quickly that all becomes one, and the lemon and the peas, and just really good. But here, everybody, is the tricky bit, because my wife here is very particular about where the cheese goes and when it goes. So there's the ricotta, there's the pecorino. Let me get you a grater, and then you can do your own thing, because I know that you're going to be very picky about this.
I'm not that picky.
Hello? There you go.
I'm not that picky at all.
Spoon?
Can you get me a spoon? Yes, please.
Yes, dear. There you go. There we go.
The ricotta, once the pasta is all lovely and cooked, the ricotta is just going to be dropped in, and it can be stirred around a little bit. like that. Just gently, there you go, fold it through.
Yeah, see? See, I mean, it is really particular, isn't it? Let's be fair, that's particular. But...
I wouldn't say so.
There you go. Then the peas and our pasta. There's a grater there, my lovely.
Oh, you've got one.
There we are. And you can see this, how with just a few little things from your fridge and from your freezer, you end up with something very, very beautiful, something very, very pretty, and something
very, very delicious.
Really delicious.
A little bit of pepper on there, just a crack of pepper, Jono.
Okay. I mean, Lisa.
Not that I'm fussy.
That is beautiful.
So, two of my favourite things for breakfast are muffins and French toast. So why not put them together?
That's it. And I love an egg.
Yeah, we love an egg.
Love an egg.
And today's show is all about using up what you've got and using things in your store cupboard.
But also what's in your freezer. And that's why I love these, because we're going to use frozen berries, which are the bee's knees.
They really are. And they are so much cheaper than fresh berries.
Crazily a lot more cheaper. Anyway.
So these are French toast muffins. Basically, a bit like sort of eggy bread.
Yeah.
But put into a muffin tin.
So you need eggs.
I need 3 eggs.
3 eggs.
And I've got 75 grams of caster sugar.
And what's my favourite egg joke?
Oh, 1 egg's an earth, no?
That's it, 1 egg's an earth.
Very good.
But 3 eggs is going to be enough for this.
I'm just going to go on then.
Go on, eggs.
Eggs. 3 eggs, and I'd like some milk, please.
Milk?
Yeah.
I'll get some milk. Just let me crack these in there. There you go.
And that just gets whisked together. Can you get the chocolate chips, please? So I think that's 375 of milk.
375 of milk. And then how many slices of bread do you want?
About 8.
So it's sort of a cross between a bread and butter pudding and a French toast.
Yeah.
So that's this. And then what size do you want them?
Little cubes.
You do that. I can't.
You can get the frozen. Why?
Well, because it just takes so long. I would just, chop it up into big bits, wouldn't I? Like making bread and butter pudding.
Yeah, no, you know what? They're going to be, you're going to see them. So you want the cubes to look nice.
I suppose the smaller ones that they are as well, they soak up more of the liquid and you end up with a sort of a crunchier muffin. But I think the thing is with, these, we talk about frozen berries, and you can buy frozen berries in all manners, shapes and forms. Or if you've got a load of fresh berries, just chuck them in these bags, these reusable bags.
There you go. Can you mix them around and put some berries in there?
Do you want to
I'll do the rest of the
chocolate
bread.
chips in yet?
You can put a handful of chocolate chips.
Goody.
A couple of handfuls. I love white chocolate and berries. I also think
bit
that
of fun.
quite a lot of us have been doing homeschooling recently, and it's one of those really good treats. So that middle of the morning, you give your kids one of these. It's not too bad for you. They sort of think they're having a nice treat, and we're all happy.
Yes. The homeschooling has been really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, in goes that. Berries go away for later on.
Right, and just mix that up together and see where we are with the bread.
Okay. I'll give it a stir.
So any bread will do. If you've got stale bread, perfect, because it's just going to be soaked. The egg mixture will soak into it, so it'll be fine.
Look at that.
Lovely.
And this is, I think, one of those things that if you watch what Lisa's doing, it's that little tip of just using 2 spoons rather than using 1, and being able to just push all the mixture in and fill up your little cupcake containers. And make a load, because, it's one of those things that they will hold and they do keep in the fridge, but whenever we make them, just get eaten.
Another thing you could do, if you wanted to, you can make them into savoury muffins. So you can cook some bacon up and cheese and do bacon and egg and cheese muffins.
And herbs.
And herbs.
Right, so that just will put a berry across the top of each one of these. Make them look really, really pretty.
So these are going to go into the oven at 190 for about 25 minutes.
Beautiful.
And like I said, they can be sweet or savoury, whatever you want, really.
They smell fantastic. There's something about, toasted bread and berries and all those lovely things.
You love it, don't you?
I do, but you know what's missing from those, don't you?
What, Jono?
Beside a bit of icing sugar across the top.
That's what that's going to have.
A very good cocktail.
A very good cocktail.
The
thing you've been waiting for.
Yeah, but the thing is, a daiquiri has three real ingredients, three main ingredients to it. It has strawberries, it has rum, and it has ice.
Yeah.
But if you actually use frozen strawberries, you can actually get rid of the ice, and then I put a bit of lime in mine to make it sharper. So this is a really, really, really easy peasy way to make a cocktail, but you need a blender. A couple of limes, which are just going to juice. And if you roll them on your bench first, really roll them on the bench first and massage them, they become a lot easier to juice. The juices flows a lot easier.
You know, if you can put them in the microwave just for a little while as well.
How long?
About 15, 20 seconds.
You wouldn't want to cook them, would you?
No, but then they'll be really juicy.
Oh, yeah. And there was when I was working out in Mauritius, they were telling me you turn them inside out to get all the juice out.
Yeah.
That worked out quite nicely. But this is one of those things that if you want to feel like you're on holidays, this is a great way to feel like you're on holidays. You've got a little sort of sharp, lovely cocktail. You can do them without alcohol as well, just by using lime juice and your strawberries and a little bit of water. But I think this with the rum makes a big difference.
You've taught our children how to make the virgin daiquiri, haven't you?
I have, yes. I've taught them how to do it. With a little bit of fizzy water in it, works really nicely. So take your lid off your blender, go to your freezer, take out your frozen strawberries, and this is where you've got to be a little bit clever about it. So a little frozen strawberries in these great reusable bags. Drop your berries into your blender, a good quantity. And if you don't have a jigger to measure with...
A jigger?
A jigger, that's what it's called, to measure alcohol with.
Right.
If you don't have a jigger to measure with, where's my rum? There it is. You use an egg cup.
Yeah.
Twice as much rum to lime.
Okay.
So we're going to do...
Twice as much rum to lime.
Yeah. So we've got 1.5, so 3 of rum.
Of course.
So, yeah? So 1, 2, 3. I would just suggest that you eat your muffins and you don't operate any heavy machinery after this.
I love your face when you're making a cocktail. You come alive, John.
I do. I'm a little barman in there, sort of wanting. Here we go. And then you whiz it. Now, a daiquiri traditionally should be icy cold and it should be quite thick. And when you drink it through a straw, it gives you that lovely feeling in your head. You know, when your eyes come together.
Like brain freeze.
Brain freeze. You want to make sure all the strawberries are blended. And you could do this with raspberries. You could do it with watermelon. And actually, frozen watermelon is a great thing. If you buy a whole watermelon, you know how sometimes a watermelon goes off really fast?
Yeah.
So you cut up the watermelon and then put all the bits in the freezer.
Yeah, make lollies.
Great way to do it. Make lollies. Lots of lolly.
A frozen pole, an icy pole or something you call them.
What do I call them? What happens when I lose my lolly?
You lose your rag. I'm going to lose my lolly in a minute.
This one's got some whole berries in it, but that's all right. Look at that.
Oh, wow, gosh.
Yeah. So it is this sort of lovely frozen mixture. Look at that there. It's sort of dessert and drink all in one. And I mean, that is, if you think about it, a few berries from the freezer. We've got ourselves a daiquiri and we have got our muffins. But really, what you've got, guys, is a counter full of food, and all of it from the store cupboard or the freezer. And we hope that you are feeling inspired and maybe you can do something clever with what you've got in stock.
Yeah, but now though it's lunchtime, so have a great day and look forward to seeing you next time for more simply delicious recipes. See ya!
Very good. Cheers.